happening in the world today, including the Pope lamenting secularism and indifference in God. So he was urging a recommitment to Jesus at the World Youth Day Vespers, and he also urged students in Portugal to fight economic justice and protect the environment. He said there is no future in the world without God. So that is definitely one of the things that we saw that the Pope was saying, and all in that kind of regards. And there are some folks that are talking about Africa as well. So the U.S. has announced a partial evacuation of the embassy there in Niger. And of course, a lot of things are happening in Russia. And I'm sure that Sasha Starr will have some things to say about these various things that are going on, including maybe it coming a little bit too close to the Western Front, because Russia has struck southern Ukrainian ports near NATO member Romania as drones shoot down over Kyiv. So that is something that we are seeing as definitely it looks like also Ukraine is taking the war to Russia with drone attacks. So that is something that is going on, and Russia has struck the Ukrainian Dernay port, which is driving up global grain prices, and that is something that is going on. And also, the Wagner mercenaries are seeking to destabilize NATO's eastern flank, and that's what the Polish Prime Minister is saying. So, like I said, a lot of this is starting to hit the Western nations as well. And tensions are high on NATO's border with Belarus after Wagner troops have moved closer to that particular area as well. And of course, a lot of folks are still paying attention to what is going on in U.S. politics and all in that space, because there is still things going on with the Trump indictment. So folks are definitely taking a look at that. Legal experts have slammed Jack Smith for bringing, quote unquote, a lousy case against Trump, and saying that is a disinformation indictment. Of course, that is coming from the Fox perspective and all along those lines. On the opposite side, in a opinion piece, CNN is saying that Trump has dug himself into the deepest possible hole. So we're going to see how this all plays out. And as we were talking about yesterday, what the impact will be on the electoral and the electorate, I should say, and the elections and all in that space. So it'll be very interesting to see what goes on with that particular case and whether there is any traction to that particular case. So it'll be quite interesting to see what happens in that. The Pittsburgh synagogue gunman has been sentenced to death. So that is something else that is in the news. And definitely that is something that a lot of folks were paying attention to and all along those lines. And you know, there are these things that happen in the movies, but I guess they happen in real life as well. Because a woman has escaped from a woman's escape from a center block cell was likely, they're saying likely spared others from a similar nightmare. So a woman kidnapped in Seattle escaped a center block cell there in Oregon. So I guess that was one of those cases where folks were abusing folks and they found a way to get out of said situation. So they were in a kind of abusive situation and was in that area and they found a way to escape. And we're going to have to find out more about how that happened. And who knows, I'm sure it'll be turned into a TV movie or something along those lines whenever the Hollywood strike ends. So that is something else that was in the news and really can be a point of conversation and all along those lines. And actually, Durham was in the news, my hometown, because of a conversation that went on between our mayor, the mayor of Durham, and one of the conservative columnists, where she was actually making the argument that housing has something to do with the crime situation. And I don't think that Bill O'Reilly liked that particular argument. And at some point or another, I may try to find that video, maybe more of an audio, and then play it and see what folks have to say about her argument and how she held up on her own. This was in a mayoral town hall that Chris Cuomo organized, and he got 4 mayors from around the country to come and talk about crime and a number of other issues as well. So definitely that is something that is going on in that space and all along those lines. And even though we have somebody on the network that is part of this hold notion of a third party, there is some things that are getting not behind it, but are actually fighting against it. So there is a movement to publicly denounce the no labels bills over potential Biden 2024 spoiler. So that is something that is going on. And I guess Biden and the world are eyeing Cornel West and No Label as a potential obstacle for Biden's re-election. So definitely there have been third-party presidential candidates who changed American history, and it looks like there is such a thing that is going on in this particular case. And who knows, maybe this time around it might actually be a third-party candidate that wins, even though that seems highly unlikely. But we'll see what happens, and I'm going to bring in our different folks and see what they've got to say about this as well. So we've got Nick Valvano. I know that we've got David Walker, who is actually at the forefront of the No Label Party and a number of other things. So I'm going to bring you in, and as well as Jacoby and also Sasha Starr. What is our folks' thoughts about this? Does No Label stand any chance whatsoever, or is it a much ado about nothing, if I can borrow from the Shakespeare line, and all along those lines? So is there a potential of this actually having some traction? Because apparently Democrats are concerned about an independent, no label presidential bid and are pressing elected officials to publicly denounce a potential third-party candidate. So definitely know we're in a divided country, and I guess there's some folks that are concerned that no labels could disrupt the elections and maybe even make it easier for Trump to be like Grover Cleveland, as you have said, Nick, and come in and win a second term after having lost.
Steal the election, Mark. Trump could come in and steal the election if a third party comes in and takes votes away from Joe Biden. You have to put that out as a possibility. And the third party, you can't say they have no chance. They have a chance. You just don't know how big the chances are. It really depends on the candidates that they get and how well they market. I don't think they're going to take away from the Trump base. I don't think they're going to take away from the Biden base, because they all have their core group no matter what happens. But there's a whole block of middle voters who may take a look at a third party rather than the two people that are there. But I'm not sure if that block is big enough to swing an election. There's been nothing like it ever in the United States, so we'll have to see. By the way, you posed a really good question, Mark. If the third party comes down, the calculus of the election is going to swing. It'll be very interesting. Sasha and Jacoby.
I think that No Labels Party, I think they lost very valuable, probably a few months, 6, maybe even more months, talking about it instead of doing something about it. Because right now there is just slightly over a year before the election. They don't have a candidate. They don't have a program. They don't have the party apparatus in all states. And somebody has to do all this job to organize it. And I don't think these people behind this movement have inclination or money or even chutzpah to do all this work. Of course, I understand that they have no chance to win federal election. They will be a spoiler. So whom they gonna hurt more, the Trump and Biden? Okay, there is no need to hurt Trump. For that, Jack Smith, he's gonna do his work, and he's doing that very, very successfully, very broad. And you know what's most interesting case? I regret that you don't spend enough time to talk about it. You are talking about the God, porno, about all kinds of things, except something what is taking everybody's attention. Everybody who has any brain, either watching other channels to understand really what's going on, or reading internet or papers or whatever they want to read, and you don't analyze. Well, are you scared of anything? I just don't understand the policy to keep mum about Trump's indictment. What is it's everywhere. It's even in Ukraine a very big theme, and a lot of papers in Ukraine, they're covering Trump indictment.
We've talked about some of the Trump indictment. We've had
No,
guests talk about Trump indictment.
not on our network.
Bad news
It's
for
not
you.
happening on our network. I remember how some people on this network, when January 6th weeks with hearings and so on. So there's, oh, come on, that's all history. Let's move on. That doesn't matter. That's nonsense. That's all. Right now, are you going to tell me that this is a nonsense? It's 24 years in jail, and that is not nonsense. And this is the real thing. What's going to happen to this crook who used the theory election was stolen. So people, idiots who have no money whatsoever, they would keep sending him more and more money so he could pay legal bills. This is the crookest thing that I ever heard in United States of America. There are a lot of things.
Yeah, but I have some sad news for you.
Magnitude.
Sad news for Sasha and everybody on the panel. I have a LinkedIn poll going on right now. We're broadcasting through LinkedIn. Okay, 1,000 people looked at it. We had, right now, about 46 people vote about whether Trump is guilty or not. 54% say no, 46% say yes. When you impanel a jury, generally in a criminal trial, all you need is one person to say no, and out the door you go. There's a great chance, not a good chance, a great chance, he walks on all counts. Now, where's that going to leave him in the electorate view? That he's persecuted. This could backfire big time on the Democrats. They think they have a winner. They don't. They don't have a winner. There's no smoking gun. There's no knife with blood on it. There's nothing there.
Hey, Nick, hold on a second. Along those same lines, hold on a second.
Just coming from Republicans. There is no single Democratic person who is providing any evidence against Trump. It's all Republicans, 100%, not even 99, 100%. So you take your linked poll and just put it.
I mean, prosecuting people criminally, the bar is higher than it is.
In case of Trump, there is no bar required because everything is documented and all evidence coming from Republicans, from Vice President Mike Pence, from all Republican officials. That's easy.
I will say,
hold on.
Trump is guilty now. Let's fill in the blank.
I will say, Nick, you're right. It just takes that one person.
You just need that one person.
However, the case that they have against him that Smith has put out is a really, really good case, and he's already knocked down the First Amendment complaint and so on and so forth. So it is definitely going to be tough. I completely agree with that, and I agree with Sasha. It is huge, but to bring in the voting block about it. This isn't moving the polls. It's because you have the polls that are in the Republican Party. They're already going to stick with them. The Democrat Party is already going to be against them. It's all about the independents. And right now, the independents have Biden up. I think it's within the margin of error. It's still 42 to 37. However, the third party that you brought up earlier, it is true. They could swing the votes to Trump because if you take, for example, Trump beat Clinton in Wisconsin by 22,000 votes. Jill Stein got 31,000. In Pennsylvania, Stein got 49,000 votes. Well, I'm sorry, 49,000 votes was what Stein got that gave Trump the margin. And then the same thing in where was that? In Michigan, right. Stein got 51,000 votes, and Trump only won by 10,000. So that third party is important in that way to play spoiler. They won't win out the election. They're just going to be spoiler.
So Jatovia, so somebody has to, knowing 100% that his party is not going to win, not even close, somebody has to put money, show me the money, organize offices in all states, put some people, pay for their bus tickets or whatever, how is it going to get there? I don't see that. Nobody A lot of talks about third party. Oh yeah, it's gonna be a great spoiler, and they're gonna do this and that.
But-
Show me the money.
But to Toby's point, you only need
some
money
kind of
in you only
announcement.
need money in about 3 or 4 states. So, and I do think that they have put the money in some certain of one of those states. I mean,
More money,
all
put more
50.
money, put more money. Show me the money. Right now, we are talking about non-event. Period. There is no party. There is no candidate. There is nothing, and you're doing nothing.
You say there's no candidate, but there are some major lobbying groups that are putting out this notice to try to get them to basically back down. I mean, Third Way, I don't know that much about, but Move On, I've been following for a while, and they've been following up on Tuesday to ask their staffers to convince their bosses to publicly denounce the efforts of this whole no label
talking about third party and talking about it, how they will spoil or win, or the organizers, they do that. All of them are losers. There is no serious person who will discuss a third party in the United States of America. If Ross Perot, billionaire, at the time, it was 30 years ago, a billionaire was something different than what is today, couldn't do anything. Yes,
Sasha, I think you're right. The third party candidate cannot be just a good candidate. If they're going to win, they need a great candidate, and we haven't seen it. So the thing is, until
they've thrown out some interesting names. They've thrown out Manchin. They've thrown
out a person that has a lot of personality, like Barack and Clinton, who, by the way, are great salesmen. You need somebody great like that to be your lead on your ticket. Until I've seen some of their candidates, like Patrick McCrory. He's good. He ain't great. Okay, unless you have a great candidate who leads that ticket, they're going to lose. Okay, but let's say they play that game. They're going to pull away from the marginal candidates. Who has a more marginal base? Probably Biden, because Trump has this core group that will support him no matter what. Then Trump jumps in and he's president of the United States. All that could happen. And
to that point, that is actually
American justice.
That's exactly what the statement says, because the statement says their candidate cannot win, but they can and would serve as a spoiler. They can return someone like Donald Trump to office. I therefore commit to opposing a no label third party ticket in 2020 for the good of the country. That's what they are asking these legislators to sign.
Hey, Mark, you and I say they can't win, but they think they can. So it doesn't matter what we think. It's what they think. Yep. There's a lot of people in the race right now we know can't win, but they jump in anyway because they think they can win.
I mean, and we keep talking about just that one no labels party because they have no information. They have no policy listed. They have no head candidate. It's just right now an enigma. And they're running the party is running on just this cloud of mystery that, hey, we're going to be this. The Green Party is still there too, and the Green Party is running Cornel West. So you've actually got two parties that are going to steal votes, and they are going to play spoiler. That's the problem. No labels. I completely agree, Sasha. They have nothing there, but they're just running on this no labels.
They're not even walking. They're not running. They're not even walking.
They're talking about
lie down and die. That's all what they can do.
But Sasha, they need a great candidate, and I haven't seen one come forth. I see a lot of what I call, 1,300 players. They're trying to be grandmasters. They need a super grandmaster.
Okay, I can ask Nakamura to become a leader of the or Lionel Messi, although he's not American though.
Right. But unfortunately, whether we know it, like it or not, the candidates win off personality. The only reason Trump does well is he's got a lot of personality. He's got a lot of baggage, but he's got a lot of personality, and that's it. Pence finally grew up here and said something interesting. He says he's surrounded by lawyers who'll tell him whatever his brain ears want him to hear. And that's the first good thing I've ever seen out of Pence. All it can tell me is he finally got a script writer.
Okay.
His mother allowed him to
what I see again.
Come on, Jacoby. Pence is boring.
Pence is horrible.
He's horribly boring.
But he's a good witness ready to testify on the trial of Donnie Trump. So Pence, maybe he is not have a lot of charisma, but he's gonna be a hell of a witness against the Trump. And
Yeah,
but you know
I'd
where
like
it's
to
all
see
leads?
this guy, Doug Burgum, from the governor of North Carolina. I'd like to see him say something, but the press right now gives these marginal candidates no press at all. But you need somebody, I just don't know who it is, that has some personality who can break through the ranks. And it's not DeSantis. Let's face it, all DeSantis is what I call a mini me. If you ever saw that movie, with Michael Meyer, he goes, "I'm Mr. Evil," and this is Little Evil. Okay, Mr. Evil is Donald Trump. Little Evil is Ron DeSantis. I mean, he doesn't have anything that's unique about him that makes any difference. So you have a mini me and a me.
You know what DeSantis is?
The worst part about
DeSantis is a poor man's Trump. That's all.
Yeah, that's exactly
And
right.
it's even worse.
Trump.
Dear Lord, Florida, the stuff that's going on in Florida now. Now you got leprosy breaking out.
Oh, leprosy has been there, but it's from, according to the press, Jacoby, it's from foreign people that come in and they bring leprosy with them. But it's curable with antibiotics over a couple of years. So they're working on that. But yeah, Florida, DeSantis has changed Florida into a circus. When I lived there, it was never a circus. It was boring. By the way, sometimes boring is good. As Sasha knows, in business, boring is good. Just
Absolutely.
make money, be quiet about it, all good. In politics, boring is not good. You've got to stick your neck out and have it chopped off every now and then. But DeSantis isn't it. So you have Trump, who's right now the front runner, and doesn't seem like that's going to change. The third party, I don't think Trump has the brain to calculate the impact of a third party positively for him. He has no clue what's going on. All he's doing is really running to pay his legal bills. That's it.
Yep.
And try to keep out of jail.
Pretty much.
I see something bigger in what's Trump doing now. You see, the problem that Republican Party is stuck behind Trump, whether they want it or not. A lot of people don't want it, but they have no choice because it's a base, it's money or ability to raise money or whatever. So they must stick with him through all this cycle. Despite of the indictment or possible jail terms, they will keep, because, if you take out Trump, Republican Party is a bunch of idiots with no policy, with absolutely anti-people's attitudes, which is really it's a cancer on American body. But with Trump,
when it's a bunch of idiots, I think you have some really smart people, but they're being pushed down. You have the Republican Party with a bunch of smart people. They're being pushed down.
Smart people can worship a criminal.
So
explain it to me. It's impossible.
Sasha,
they're not smart after all, Nick.
I think you started off with why he's there. I always say it. They created this monster. This monster created a base. And if the Republican Party wants to stay in power, they're going to have to ride this monster because that base is with him. Regardless, if he's not there, that base is gone. And the Republican Party, like you said, they don't have anything. They don't have a platform that's popular. They've been running on so many cultural issues that are unpopular, and that's what they've been fighting with. And Trump has been the megaphone for that. And if you take Trump out, you have nobody to really, just as Nick points out, nobody with personality to be able to sell that culture war issue. Nobody to be able to push that through because that base is following him through thick and thin, through indictments, through impeachments, through racist remarks, through sexist remarks. Heck, the dude just got convicted. Did he either get convicted or got off on the sexual assault case?
Yeah, no, he got convicted on the sexual case. Okay, you don't understand, as you do understand, Jacoby, it doesn't matter. But one thing Trump has, he's in the media every day, every bloody day. Now let's go look at Doug Burgum, who's not in the media. This guy started from scratch, created a software company, okay? Sold it for $1 billion to Microsoft. He said he only had a minority position, maybe 10%. Okay, but he still made $100 million as a self-made person, as opposed to, he's in the Republican Party, self-made as opposed to a guy that was handed 400 million who blew it all. Then he was on the board and worked at Microsoft. Then he ran for governor of North Dakota. He's very good at policy, and he gets zero publicity. You will not see him on TV. Zero publicity. There are people like that in the Republican Party who get zero. Who's in the media? It's not Doug Burgum. Okay. Instead, who dominates the media? It's Donald Trump. So when you vote, remember you vote on name recognition. Oh, I recognize Donald Trump's name.
Mm-hmm.
I'll vote for him because I'm always going to vote Republican. And so the good people in the Republican Party are all quashed by
what you're discussing is a very natural process. People are voting by familiar name or personality or something. Yeah. So look, Biden has a very high anti-rating. A lot of even Democrats don't like both Biden's policies, his personality, his ailing situation. But to Republican Party to exploit it, they need combination of two things. They want to get out Trump and yet keep his base. What genius in Republican Party can do both? I don't see that.
That's a good question. But the thing is,
Sasha, hold on a second. Nick and Sasha, hold on one second. One of the other problems that exists, hold on a second. One of the other problems that exists, and I'd love to hear both of your thoughts about this, and even everybody on the panel, is that I hear what y'all are saying about Trump and his base, but the argument that I hear from the other side is that your base also has a problem, because there are some people that will say that while the Republicans have been pushed too far to the right with the policies of Trump and some of those others in the MAGA base, that the Democrats, and I'm not saying that I agree, but this is an argument that they make, have been pushed too far to the left by the policies of, say, AOC and Ilhan Omar and a number of others, and all in that kind of way. So that is what you will see some of those that are on the other side make the argument that we have gone too far to the extremes on both sides. So is there any merit to that? Because I've heard several Republican friends of mine and acquaintances have definitely made that argument that y'all are going too far to the other side. Y'all are complaining about us going too far to the right. Well, have you looked at your policies and which way you are going? And I'm not saying that I agree, but that is the argument that they make. So what is your counter argument?
Well, Mark, let's get real. Extreme people are interesting if it's an AOC or it's a Marjorie Taylor Greene, because they'll do wacko things. Normal people are boring, and so they don't attract the press. So the people who just go to work every day, do their job, and actually move the country ahead, they're giving no press at all. Instead, they run over to Marjorie Taylor Greene. Let's see what crazy fanatical thing she's going to say. Or let's run over to AOC and see who she's slamming today. So the thing is, those people become interesting. So the press is naturally gravitating to the extremes. The vast majority of them don't get any press because, hey, they're working and doing their job. And that's a big problem that we have in American politics today. We have a lot of people that are good, hardworking people, and they're not going to get elected.
And it also goes to one of the things that we have talked about prior in the show is the media influence. And in that media influence, because we're trying to cater to get that biggest audience, and you cannot upset people. So you know what you have to do? You have to create what's called a false equivalence. And there is a difference between the two extremes in terms of the amount of people that are in those extremist groups and what the extremes are asking for. There are extremes on the left. There are some really extremes on the left, but those extremes don't have power, don't have that party trying to shut down the government because of they want to, or they're not trying to block the military from, putting people in particular positions because they want to hold out for a campaign promise about abortion because they figure that abortion, we send our military women or women in the military or the wives in the military to particular places. Now their rights are gone in those areas. So therefore you can't travel anywhere. You get no extra money to travel to do a medical procedure that you feel is right for you. that's an extreme position that Tommy Tuberville is holding, that is now grabbing the whole party and holding up actually military readiness. When we talk about AOC is considered extreme, but what is she actually asking for in terms of those extremes? If you talk about the Green New Deal, there's things within the deal that everybody actually wants. And we are sitting in the hottest temperatures that we've ever had in our lifetime. So when we talk about extremes, we can't create that false equivalence. Like MTG talks about Jesus or Jewish space lasers, and that wind turbines are killing whales because cancer and birds. The extremes aren't the same. So if we try and balance that out, it's hard to balance that because you have one that's way far, and the media has created these ideas and ideals. Like Ilhan Omar, her views on Palestine and Israel are considered extremely extreme. And some of her comments are seen as extreme. But that's just one person. But you have a whole group that's doing anti-Semitic views and pushing stuff. Heck, they took Kanye West and everybody else into the actual White House. And then on top of that, they've taken and retweeted things from Kanye West and other anti-Semitic individuals on the right. So when we try and hold up Ilhan Omar as being, and she actually went and apologized for her comments and tried to do things, that's not truly as extreme. That's what we used to do. Robert Byrd was considered super extreme, but Robert Byrd actually recanted his issues with the Klan and actually became reformed and helped the civil rights movement. And so he learned from that. So that's how the extremes used to be. They used to follow in the fold and find out, let's work together. But you have this extremist wing that's far out extreme that has power. And there are extremes on the left, but they don't have power the way they do on the right. So we cannot, I think in the media, we've labeled people and then those labels have stuck. And then we've done this false equivalence we've got to have. And that's what the problem we get into more so than anything.
Hey, Jacoby, along those same lines, and I just want to hear your thoughts. I know Sasha's going to not like me bringing it up, but there is because it's localized, but it is something that was interesting and everything. I'd love to hear your thoughts about it and whether she made a legitimate point. I personally think that it is a legitimate point, even though Bill O'Reilly tried to shoot it down. But Mayor O'Neill, which is our mayor here in Durham, went up to New York on the first of this week and everything, along with several other mayors and law enforcement officials, and was part of a town hall. And now she's not running for re-election, but her argument was that providing affordable housing is central to the problems with crime. So it all comes down to really one basic thing in my mind that we have to address if we're going to deal with these issues: housing. There is a housing crisis when people do not have a place to live that is safe and where they can begin to have a life. You create a life where you are, she said, and that was her argument. Later in the show, Bill O'Reilly appeared virtually and refuted that notion. He went back to the Great Depression and said that crime was relatively low, and it's a cultural change that drives crime in America. And when O'Neill received the mic back from Cuomo, she said, and he asked her what she believed about housing. She said absolutely everything when he says that. He's not living in my reality. So she actually said that O'Reilly is living in somebody else's reality, and that way back when, being in the Depression, that might have been the case, but it's not true in Durham, North Carolina right now. My reality is that housing is an issue and homelessness is an issue, and it feeds into the other issues. So says the middle class mayor. That's actually how she ended the statement and everything. And then he went back and said that she insulted every poor person in the country that has substandard housing. I think that she was making a legitimate point about your basic needs being something that can push crime, whether it's housing, whether it's food, or whether it's whatever else. Now, she might have done it in a more elegant way, and I've actually invited her to come into the show at some point or another, because I do know Mayor
And you know what, Mark? She's right. I mean, the thing is, Bill O'Reilly is an idiot. Let's just get real. He's a smart idiot, if there's a possibility to do that, because he's very intelligent. but he doesn't really have command of his facts. Housing, if he's ever been to LA, San Francisco, and frankly, Durham, North Carolina, it's out of control. The cost of housing is just astronomical relative to your wages, your salary, your net worth, and everything. And the good thing about Alan Greenspan and the Federal Reserve, his number one focus was to make sure that we built enough housing for everybody. In other words, it was a great focus. And since then, we lost that focus. So what do we have? Homeless people in LA, homeless people in San Francisco, people that work just to afford housing, which means they can't afford anything else. Substandard housing everywhere. And so the thing is, to not focus on housing is just bloody wrong. And for him to make an analogy in the Great Depression, hey, Bill, why don't we make an analogy when we were Neanderthals and see how housing, oh, well, murder rates weren't very great when Neanderthals. Okay, it has nothing to do with it. What we're also seeing is wealth disparity, which I hope she brings up at some point in time. I hate to say it, but it's absolutely true. The top 1% have 40 to 70% of all assets in the United States. The bottom 40% have 1%. You know, this wealth disparity is unbelievable in this country. And the Gini coefficient is horrible. In other words, your ability to move up in society is horrible. Yes.
I don't think that housing alone can solve many problems.
I agree with that. Yeah.
Beside house, you need transportation because people cannot stay in the houses and not going out or go to work or go to study or whatever they want to do. They need transportation. Now, with transportation, so now have housing, now you have transportation. So you're talking about infrastructure, period. And you have to put a lot of money and time and attention to build that infrastructure. Number three, people who are living there, they must have a place either to work or study. Work, I would put number one, number two, and number three, study number four, and recreation number five, and many other things. So wherever you're going to build, you're not going to build housing in Manhattan, probably, no. You will build probably in more distant avenues. And is there going to be places for people who will move into this housing to work or to do anything meaningful? By the way, I've seen several months ago a very interesting documentary about people in, I think it was in California, Los Angeles area. They showed the trailer parks where people used to live, but now a lot of people cannot afford to have a trailers. So they're bringing their cars, they're using for transportation to work or so on. And what they're doing, they're sleeping in their cars. And they were showing, for example, a couple of people, one man, he had pretty well-paid job as a computer programmer. And yet he understood if he would move into one of the even rental apartments or never mind buying something, he will have no money left for food or anything else. So in order to save some money and to be better off, he decided to live for a while in this trailer park in his own car. He sleeps there, and then he's going somewhere, he's washing himself, or so on. And there was another woman, same thing. She has pretty good, well-paid job. She was, but I think woman was staying in
Sasha, it's more common than you expect. There's at least 2 or 3 folks that I know that have gone through the loss of their housing for whatever reasons, whether it was unemployment or being laid off, or whether it was things that were going on with their rental apartments, that I can tell you that I know personally have gone through that and are literally living in their cars. So yes, it is more common than people would like to think, all in that space.
Okay, I agree, Mark. It's not common, but I never talk to people with this experience. But this documentary showed really well real people. They said their names and where they're working and so on, and they were not trying to hide it because there's nothing shameful in what they're doing. And I think that probably it's much easier to solve the housing and many other things in the South. At least there is a climate that's not harsh during the winter, so people can stay, whether it's this parks, the recreational facilities, and some.
I,
Yeah,
I
definitely.
can't
Hey,
agree,
just
but it's
really quickly, because I definitely want to hear your thoughts around Elaine O'Neill and what she went through and did and all of that. And by the way, she did bring up some of the stuff around money, but she brought it up around the defund the police movement. And she said she's not the biggest fan of that movement, and definitely has watched the bail arguments with no cash bonds. And she said that she doesn't agree with a lot of those things, having sat at the front seat when she was a judge. But she said she was willing to look at viable alternatives. And to your point, Sasha she said you have to have a way to get people to court. At the end of the day, for some of these things, you're going to have a system that works for the majority, and America moves on money. So that is not a statement. That is not a. It's a very common statement. It's a very real statement. Is what I'm trying to say. Is that it's something that I don't think anybody can make an argument about in that sense. But what is your thoughts about what happened in that particular incident? And like I said, there were several other mayors that were there, and they were having a whole conversation around crime in America and what some of the solutions could be.
I mean, it's there has to be an all-encompassing solution. There is no, I mean, housing, you're right, Sasha, that's not the only thing. I mean, you got families that have kids that have pets. It costs money for medications, and medical bills are going out the wazoo. Yeah, you got when I was working, or when I helped out a school that was working with at-risk youth, and one of the reasons for their recidivism was the fact that these kids did not see opportunities. They figured, okay, well, it's easy to go to jail and I can get fed. I got a place to stay, even though it's dangerous, blah, blah, blah. We don't think about that outside. We just think that this kid is bad. And then when that kid gets out, they're already labeled. They've got to put a check mark on an employment form saying that they went to jail. So now they already know that they're not going to have an opportunity outside of getting maybe a fast food job that's not going to pay for anything that they want to do, or pay or actually help them education wise. So they have so many roadblocks once you hit jail. So that recidivism is something that we've got to look at, because a lot of people, for example, you guys heard the story about Jerry Williams, right? The kid who in California who had his third strike for stealing a slice of pizza. The guy was hungry. He cannot afford food, and got 25 years for stealing a slice of pizza. So we just look at Jerry Williams, or the majority will look at Jerry Williams and say, hey, he's just a crook. He's just a crime. They don't think about why. I think that was brought up. We had tried to talk a little bit about, okay, well, not every crime is a crime of passion or a crime of this. No, there are reasons people do particular things, and a lot of that deals with poverty, housing, no opportunity. Just okay, well, nobody else cares about me, so I'm just going to do this anyway. There are a lot of reasons people do these crimes, and if we can get to the root of these problems, housing helps with a lot of it. Opportunity, that whole infrastructure, Sasha, that you're talking about, that's what gives that opportunity. If these kids and these adults don't see that they're going to get a job, you know what I'm going to do? I need diapers. So I'm gonna go ahead and stuff some diapers that I open a box up at Target into my pants and sneak out of Target with, because I need diapers. I want to take my kids to a movie, but we can't afford the food on the inside of the theater. So you know what? I'm gonna wear a big jacket on this 100-degree weather day, take my kids, put in some snacks on the inside that we've got at the house, because I can't afford that. But now I get caught, and now they're saying I'm doing petty theft. So now my kids see me go to jail and have no opportunity for themselves. My 4-year-old now has to go into this home, and because my 4-year-old is Black, has a low percentage of getting adopted. So now this kid grows up in this adoption center, and now is 18 and has never had a family in his life, or has never had a family in her life. So you know what? She may end up putting herself in a position where she doesn't see that how men only see sex. So now she gets raped. Now she has a baby that she's now forced to have because this now politician says, well, women are only having abortions because it's opportunity. They shouldn't have sex anyway. Well, she gets raped and is in the state now. Now she can't pay for her kids. Now what position is she in? What position is he in? Because his father was not there, or his mother was not there, or nobody cared. So guess what? Now I got crime. So it's a cycle. And that's all we're creating are just cycles. And we're never actually creating a solution or a comprehensive solution to fix that problem, because we ourselves get in our silos and say, okay, welfare, they're taking my tax dollars and giving it to these people, but these people are just trying to go to a movie. They should just spend it on food. Well, they want to do the same things for their family and give their family a better view than just the four walls they're growing up in. They want to give them better experiences. And that helps me in the long run, because now my kids may run against their kids and they have a shared experience and can now create a better life for themselves. We get in these silos and forget about these things because it's easy.
Jota, a quick question to you. Are you familiar with the Dostoevsky's The Crime and the Punishment?
Yes.
Excellent. So there, obviously what this student did to the old lady moneylender, obviously he didn't do it because he was forced to do it, because he didn't have money to buy food or anything. It was very calculated a move, and he did it by his own design, because he believed that what he is fighting for is the better world where there would be no this old lady moneylender, the students would have enough money to support themselves and study or so on. So in some ways, he was, or he could be viewed and even somewhat justified in what he did, because what you're saying is that somebody who stole a piece of pizza and he's got a jail term, and just a piece of pizza. If he would stole all pizza, probably he would be probably already executed by now. So you see, the crime and the punishment for that reason. This is very intricate issue. It's not straightforward, as you see.
But like you said, I'm definitely going to try to get Elaine O'Neill to come on and everything. But one of the things I was going to ask you, Sasha, as we got a few more minutes to wrap up, and we can definitely go a little bit over because the next show is at 12, which is Barbara H. Jennison's Empowering You show, and all along those lines. But definitely there is this notion, and I'm going to switch it back to world affairs, of the war coming to the West. Because like I mentioned before, Romania is being threatened to some degree. Poland is looking like it could be pulled into the Ukraine-Russia conflict. So is this something that we're going to see more of, Sasha? Because you've definitely been studying that even more than I have and everything. So do you think that the Western nations are going to get pulled more into this conflict, and we may be heading more into a World War III kind of situation? Because I do know from my study of history of World War I and World War II that some of the other nations were pulled into the war when things came closer to their borders and all along those lines. So is this something that we should be reflecting on and thinking about? Because like I said, I know a lot of folks are seeing, hey, wait a minute, this war was the Ukrainians defending their border, but now it's coming to our border and we are NATO members, meaning both Romania and Poland. So what is your take on that? And if anybody else has any thoughts on it as well.
Well, first of all, about classification of world wars, you mentioned 1 and 2. There was a Cold War, and much longer than either First or Second World Wars. And that Cold War, which some people view as the Third World War, was handedly won by the United States and the West, except one thing: they failed to really mark that event and engraved it in stone and put contribution on the idiots who were fighting them for well over 40 years after Second World War. They failed to do that, and now it's a payback time. So what's happening now? Russian army is supposed to be second in the world. And if you put a nuclear component, it probably first or at least equal first in the world. But look what's happening now. For a year and a half, they cannot take over Ukraine, who was absolutely unprepared for the war, which is much smaller country, no nuclear arms available, nothing. And they, for a year and a half, they're not getting anywhere. They got some territories, and Ukrainians slow. They already got 50% of whatever Russians got in the first few months of war. Ukrainians got already back 50% of that, and it will be not that. So if a Russian army is so weak and so clumsy, how they can inflict any damage on NATO countries? Poland is very specific thing. Poland is waiting. They're dreaming about the day when Russia will start assault on them, because then Poland will annihilate Belarusia, Minsk, and they will move on Moscow, and very quickly. Poland army is way much bigger, much stronger, better trained and equipped than Ukrainian army, because don't forget that Poland is part of NATO, not just part, a major part. And Poland, same as the Baltic republics, except they're much smaller. But Poland is dreaming to bloody Russian nose. And Russia knows that very well. So that's why they're hiding behind Belarusia, a Wagner group supposedly there. Oh, they don't really want to invade Poland, because it will be a major calamity, much more than Ukrainian. The problem is that the tactics of Russia is to disrupt order, to go over here to Syria, to Africa, to Poland, to this, and just not even fight really, but to make some threats, make some accidents, make something really happening, just to keep up the pressure on the West. So the West say, enough is enough. Keep Ukraine, keep all these territories in Africa and Latin America. Take everything, just get rid of, we want to get rid of you, and we don't want to deal with you. That's all what they're playing for. So let them do it. Just ignore. Polish people, I saw interviews, average Polish citizens, and they were asked how, if they're worried about this Russian moves against Poland, they say, bring them in. Bring them in. They're not worried about Russia invading Poland, period.
Any thoughts around that, Toby, or have you been following any of the world politics or anything along those lines?
I mean, not really many thoughts on what Sasha was discussing, because I think Sasha covered it all pretty well. But I guess since we're slowly winded down to wind things back to everything that we were if we go globally in terms of, we talk about poverty and things that people have to do and so on and so forth, that's also another reason why people join gangs and terrorist groups and so on and so forth, because they feel forced and people are trying to escape particular areas.
But Jacoby, not just gangs and everything, because one of the things I was going to bring up, and maybe we'll talk about it, I'm trying to get some experts to come on it, but there is some disruption in one of the continents, and some people are wondering, I mentioned Niger earlier, but apparently there is a rise in coups in the continent of Africa, and I'm thinking that part of that is that some of these countries have some severe poverty going on. So them and the ruling class, whoever the ruling class are oftentimes like the oligarchs in Russia, being very self-serving and not necessarily serving to the masses of the people. And then when the people get frustrated, they sometimes have an uprising, because I do know that there have been several uprisings on the continent of Africa. So do you think that poverty could be playing into that conversation as well?
It does. I mean, poverty, religion. Money and religion are the two reasons why most wars are fought. Then you also add in, housing is another issue that it goes on in Africa as well. So if you look at, across all spectrums, how poverty has an effect. If the rich, I mean, the wage disparity. You know, you have rich people, you have poor people, and the rich people get to do anything and everything. The poor people have to struggle to do anything. That becomes frustrating. So the poor people uprise and like, hey, we need more equality. And that, yeah. So yeah.
No, and along those same lines, and this is a lighter-hearted way to end the show and everything. I'm going to actually bring up something serious because I do know that particularly Nick likes to see what's going on in China, and there is a China flood that is going on. That's not the lighthearted part, of course, and everything, but there, Beijing is recording its heaviest rain in 140 years, and all along those lines. But I actually had the pleasure yesterday of talking to somebody in that at least was a student of the whole transhumanist movement and all along that lines. And sometimes that comes into the whole notion of self-identifying. And I brought up yesterday the gentleman that was walking around as a dog. Well, apparently there is a thing that is going on with China as well, because in the China zoo, some people are saying that the sun bear is really a real bear, and some think that it looks like a human in a costume, and some people are saying that a Chinese zoo has tried to pass a golden retriever off as a lion. That seems like a major kind of hard thing to do, because I've seen both a golden retriever and I've seen a lion. They don't look all that much alike and everything, but that is the accusation. So definitely, Jacoby, since I know you're in that comedy lane as well as the improv lane, what's going on with animals, people wanting to be animals and dressing up as animals, and then maybe even in some cases trying to be the animal. But I was just wondering if you had any thoughts, if Sasha wants to jump on it as well, because I'm going like, wait a minute, they're telling a lot of these stories, and I know that there was a whole episodes around the furries in a couple of the crime shows and other shows, but there seems to be a lot of folks that are trying to think that they want to be animals for whatever reason and all along those lines. So any
Mark,
thoughts?
one huge advantage what animals have over people is that they don't steal a piece of pizza. Okay? They can murder you easily, but they will not steal a piece of pizza. So that's a major difference. Now, Jatovi, what would you like to comment?
I mean, there's, hey, everybody wants to be something different. And when I was growing up, I wanted to be a fire truck, not a fireman. I wanted to be the fire truck because it made noise. I got a buddy who told me that their son wants to be a screen door.
Really?
Not a screen door, but a screen door.
Why does the son want to be a screen door? What's the benefit of being a screen door?
I don't know, but we always want to be something different. So people want to be animals, let them be animals. Go ahead, do your thing. Rawr.
Be alive, be whatever. Because in that same conversation, the young lady that I was talking to, a couple of people, and they were Hollywood types. One of them said that they wanted to be a wisteria, and part of the conversation was whether a wisteria was a bush or a tree. And I actually learned that a wisteria is actually both, because I think in China the bigger version is a tree, but in the ones that we see in the US, it's more like a bush as opposed to a tree. So they did some research and found out that the wisteria is actually fits in both classes. So it is both a tree and a bush, depending on which wisteria you get, and all along those lines. But yeah, folks can be whatever they want to be. I'm thinking that in the, Sasha may go out later on today and along with his wife decide that they want to be whatever the national tree is of Canada. And Toby might decide he wants to be the baseball bat, because he definitely does a lot of work with the baseball game, and maybe he wants to be the baseball bat this time around.
No, I'm going straight mythical. I'm going to be a dragon, not a wyvern. I want to be a dragon. I want my wings. I want my legs. I want to be able to breathe some fire. I don't know. I don't know if I'm going to do fire or not, but I want to fly. Actually, Godzilla. That's what Godzilla's man. I love Godzilla.
So, Sasha, you just heard what he wants to be. He's supposed to be a dragon. I don't think it would be bad to be either a ocelot or a bobcat, because I've always liked the big cats and everything. So, Sasha, as we get ready to get out of here, what would you want to be?
Wait, Mark, we got to talk real quick. An ocelot? You really want to be an ocelot? You want to hang upside down as a cat from a tree? Turn the feet upside.
Yeah, they're cool. Well, actually, my go-to animal that I have always enjoyed, and I've said this on some other shows, is I'm a big fan, and actually a friend wrote a short story based on some of my own career and everything, where I have said numerous times that I am a fan of otters because I just think otters are absolutely cool animals, even though some people tell me they can also be very nasty in their demeanor. But I just think that they're cool and they like to play in the water, and I'm not a major swimmer. So that could be a way that I could be a swimmer without being a swimmer. So Sasha, as we get ready to get out of here, if you could be any animal or anything along those lines, what would you choose to be? And definitely can't be anything that's going to attack Trump. So maybe it can be something to attack Trump.
Okay, instead of answering your question, it will be more useful time to remind you that there were a very famous novel which I read in Russian many, many years ago. The translation would be The Head of Professor Dowell by Mr. Belyaev. I'm not sure if you heard about it, but the idea was that he was a student and he had a famous professor who was a genius and he published so very important scientific works or so on. And this student became finally scientist himself, and he was very skillful medicine practice he had or so on. And he started to think that with the time, this Professor Dowell, he will be aging, and eventually he'll die, and his fabulous brain will be wasted. And he decided to save his brain. So a way to proceed, he figured out if he will supply all the necessary infrastructure to feed this Professor Dowell's head, which could then exist by itself. It doesn't need the body, because all body is doing is supporting your mind, your brain, or so on, because all your body is really nothing. It's just you have to feed it, you have to wash it, you have to do exercises, whatever. It's just a waste of time. Your head is the most important thing. That's what makes a man, not an animal, and a unique creature. So he prepared very complicated operation, and he had assistants and so on. And they indeed severed his head from the body and put it on tubes and everything, and all necessary things to make it viable. And very soon he started to talk, and he was very happy that he doesn't need his body. It was just a waste. And now, and he proposed that he could live much, much longer, because sometimes the body fails and your heart can fail, or your other organs could fail. But with your brain, which has a super substances to have its creativity and longevity or so on. And that was very, very interesting concept. I never heard that anybody tried something like this. But
well, I don't know if they've tried anything along those lines, but if I understand correctly, and Jacoby can correct me if I'm wrong, there is this notion that has been going on ever since AI and a number of other things came on the forefront of digital immortality, which is similar to what you're saying happened in this novel, which is the notion that your brain can live on even though your body has passed on and is, rotten somewhere, whether it's in a grave or whatever else. But there's the notion is that your brain power and everything that you thought about, and even the methods of your thinking, can continue, because that is kind of the notion of digital immortality, because it is this notion that even without your body being here, you can continue to have thoughts that are going on even past the thoughts that you had when you were living as a human being, from my understanding of digital immortality. Correct me if I'm wrong, Jato, because like I said, you're more in that space.
Well, I mean, yeah, that's been lore in movies and novels with Steve Martin, with The Man with Two Brains, even just recently with all the Scooby-Doo series, even just recently with Velma, the one that hit HBO. There was a show on Netflix, Carbon, what was it? Altered Carbon, where basically you had your whole consciousness was on a disc, and you could swap out bodies just by swapping out the disc. There's a movie, an Amazon Prime series called Upload, which basically they if you're about to die and you have any brain consciousness left, this goes, I guess, to poverty and everything else, which they actually touched on. And it was also, it dealt with religion a little bit as well. But what they tapped into was, if you're about to die, you can pay to stay on living in a digital world where, based on how much your policy pays into that digital world depends on what you get in that digital world. So you get to live and be active 24/7. If you pay for an expensive policy, living in this beautiful hotel, looks like the Banff Hotel in Canada, actually. I think they filmed it.
Great place.
And so you live in this beautiful hotel, do whatever you want to, and you have these individuals that monitor the server that you're on. But if you don't pay, you actually only last for a particular amount of hours, and then you have to pause for the next day, and then you go again. So it was interesting how they did it. But yeah, that's another.
Definitely things like a common theme.
The way they upload you is they actually blow up your head. Basically, they take this machine and it destroys your head, but it uploads your body there.
No, I saw that episode, and it is very scary the way that they did that. Yeah, you are totally demolished in that sense and all in that way. I was going to bring up something that Lee brought up on his LinkedIn profile, and then on that note, I'm going to get out of here, but maybe we can talk about it on tomorrow or on a later episode. But I do know that it was a very moving video that Lee brought, where there were two protesters, one that was kind of a Black Lives Matter protester and another that was in the counter protest, and I think they might have been part of the MAGA group. But at the end, they actually came together and hugged and found that they had more in common than they had different, and all in that space. So I just wanted to mention that, because that is something that we probably should have more of in this world, is some ways to find unity and commonality, and not all the differences and division that goes on. And I may even play that video on tomorrow if I get a chance to download it. But it was very much of a moving video if you watch it, because you literally see the protesters going down the street shouting their slogans and things of that nature, and you see the other group waiting, and it sounds like they're getting ready to have an encounter, but the encounter turns out to be a peaceful encounter, and they actually come together in unity. So I definitely wanted to mention that. And like I said, I may play that video on tomorrow, because I've seen other videos that are similar from other parts of the world.
Mark, you remember the old slogan by Karl Marx, "Proletarians of all countries united." Mm-hmm. So today the slogan would be "the protesters of all countries united."
Could be the slogan, exactly. And on that note, we're getting to get on out of here. And all along those lines, even though it would be kind of interesting to see Ukrainians and Russians getting together in a hug, I don't think we're seeing that anytime in the near future. And all along those lines, I just don't see it happening. But definitely on that note, we're getting ready to get on out of here, and we'll have some more conversation on tomorrow and all along those lines.